straight off into perhaps a controversy. National insurance, what would Labour do? If you've still been in power, it would be going up for employers as well as employees in April. Is that still what you'd like to do?
Well, there was no disagreement between me and Ed Miliband. I was asked what we would be doing now if we'd won the election. We're the only party, actually, who would have been doing what we said to the British people at the time of the general election we would do. You'll remember, we said we'll put national insurance up for employers and employees. There was a furore about this. The Conservatives said, no, we wouldn't do that. We said, well, if you don't, and the Liberal Democrats, Vince Cable and Nick Clegg were more eloquent than most, saying if you don't do that, you're bound to put VAT up, which is a regressive tax that hits pensioners, that hits the poorest, the hardest. Conservatives said, no, we won't do that.
Well, we know
Nick
your
Clegg
opposition
unveiled loads of posters about a VAT bombshell. So we'd have been doing what we told the public we'd be doing. Yes, you're right, Dermot.
So we know,
and
so
I'm
we know
not
your
projecting
opposition to
this
the VAT
forward.
rise. So would you still like to put up employers' contributions in national insurance?
I'm not setting out our policy for the next general election. That's 2015. I'm answering the question, what would we be doing now? And what we say is this government is taking a reckless gamble. They're cutting too deep, too quickly. The increase in VAT, as the OBR has said, the Office for Budgetary Responsibility, will take 0.3% off of GDP. That's £5 billion of economic activity willfully destroyed in the private sector at a time when
taking money
we
out
need
of
to get the
businesses
momentum
through
going.
Employers increased national insurance contributions. That takes money out of the economy as well.
True.
That is a tax
That's
on
true.
jobs too.
These are tough decisions. You have to make tough decisions. But we were told that the increase in national insurance would cost jobs. It would be a tax on jobs, is what the Conservatives said. The CIPD, the Chartered Institute for Personnel and Development, say that this would actually cost 250,000 jobs, the VAT increase, compared to 75,000 job losses under the VAT increase. And we wouldn't have hit pensioners, and we wouldn't have hit the poorest, the hardest, which is what the VAT rise does.
We've heard this very volubly and in great detail about VAT. So I can presume then that an incoming Labour administration would go back down to 17.5% on VAT.
No, you're opposing this rise. Dermot, you know that because we're talking about 2015 when the next general election comes in. It's true that only Labour has reduced VAT. We reduced it for pensioners who were struggling so much on their heating bills. And it's true that Conservative governments put it up. Howe put it up from 8 to 15%. Lamont put it up to 17.5%. I now hear that the Prime Minister has said, whereas the 50% tax rate for the richest in our society would not be permanent, the VAT increase would. Now, that's extraordinary, given that it has twice the effect on the poorest in our society as on the richest.
But we are left then wondering, are we not, was where would Labour find the money?
Well, you're not, Dermot.
You were committed to attacking the structural deficit, not quite as fast
yes.
as the coalition government at the moment.
Nowhere near as fast.
Not quite as fast. Well, Alistair Darling's plans were still pretty robust, and the cuts did hit this year. You've got spending commitments, so where does the money come from?
But look, we talk about two different things. We talk about what we would be doing now, and that's all set out very clearly. It was set out in the budget, £57.5 billion worth of cuts, £1 billion off of public sector pensions, £1.5 billion off of public sector pay, savings throughout Whitehall, the tax increases that we would have put, 60% of which would have affected the 5% richest in this country. Now, I can't translate that forward to the next general election. We're going to have to see. No shadow chancellor would do that. We're going to have to see what the economy looks like at the time. But I think it's really significant that we start the year with a broken promise, because both parties said they wouldn't increase VAT, with something that takes forward this kind of fiscal fundamentalism that we've seen from this government. No other country is pursuing this, and that actually hits the poorest the hardest.
But let's just clear it up. The first question back again. The secondary Class 1 rate for employers, would it or would it not go up?
Had we won
Labour?
the last general election, we would have been putting that up.
To what?
We'd have been putting that up in April. It would go up by 1%. Of course, for most people, it's going up by 1%.
Yeah, but what is the rate at the moment?
For most people, it's going up by 1% anyway, because employees are putting an increase in are paying their increase in employee VAT. I think most people think that the increase in VAT has replaced the national insurance.
I'm just interested in that response,
hasn't.
Mr. Johnson. I mean, I just threw it in there because you were, when you took the job, as you said, a bit of an economic novice. I just wonder if the Shadow Chancellor knows what the current rate of employers' national insurance contributions are.
Well, look, the accusation of being an economic novice is that when you take over a new job, you have to ensure that you bone up on
pretty
these
basic
things.
element of the tax system, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going up by 1%.
From
20% to 21%.
Sorry, national insurance. Employers, secondary Class 1 rate for employers stands at the moment at 12.8%.
12.8%. Right. Okay. That helped you out there. Okay.
I mean, just out of interest. So there's still a lot to learn for you in terms of the job.
There's not a lot to learn about how we.
Well, the numbers are all important, aren't they?
Deficit. Well, the numbers are all important, yes, but so is the macro situation of this country. We're in a position now where unemployment is higher than it should be, where inflation is higher than expected, where we're going into a situation where we need momentum in our economy, and where if we don't get growth in our economy, and if we don't get jobs and growth must be the focus of this year, and the increase in VAT is damaging that.